Look, there's no denying that Luke Getsy was the second choice Antonio Pierce and Tom Telesco had to fill the void of a much-needed, experienced offensive play caller for the Las Vegas Raiders. We wanted to go Cliff Kingsbury. He backed out, and Getsy kind of fell into our lap. Initially, we were all upset about that. We did a deep dive into Luke Getsy. We saw my alarms going off. We saw some things we liked, and we convinced ourselves that it wasn't the worst thing in the world. But if you do a deeper dive into the Luke Getsy offense when he was in Green Bay in 2020 and 2021, not only will you convince yourself that we'll be okay, but we're going to have a top 10 offense. For those of you who don't know, before Luke Getsy was the offensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears, he was the wide receivers coach and passing game coordinator for the Green Bay Packers in 2019, 2020, and 2021. Then he took all those offensive schemes, went to Chicago. They didn't have the right weapons. Davante Adams said this all himself on Max Crosby's podcast. He was like, Luke Getsy's my guy. We're going to be running the Packers offense that we ran when I was with Aaron, and we were rocking and rolling. He tried to bring that stuff to Chicago. They didn't have the right weapons and talent to use Luke Getsy's system, and it kind of came up short, where here we do have most of the talent we had in Green Bay. And we're going to get into the numbers of the people that were used in the Luke Getsy offense in 2020 and 2021, the types of plays they run. But before we do all that, I need to address something that I know people are screaming and yelling about in the comments already. Aaron Rodgers was the quarterback of the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Rodgers is not the quarterback of the Las Vegas Raiders. I understand that a lot of these stats revolve around Aaron Rodgers being Aaron Rodgers. There's two things I'd like to say about that. Thing one, in the 2020 season, that was far and away the best year of Aaron Rodgers' career. The Green Bay Packers broke all sorts of records. So even for someone as good as Aaron Rodgers, when Luke Getsy was the passing coordinator, he was the best he ever was. So it's shown that Luke Getsy can bring the best out of any type of talent at the quarterback position. Even if that talent is already Hall of Fame worthy, he can make him look even better. The second thing I'd like to say is, when we get into the numbers right now of what the Packers did in 2020, look at the offensive weapons they had versus the offensive weapons we have. Where we may be lacking in the quarterback department, the Packers were lacking in terms of offensive weapons, and they still went 13-3 and broke all sorts of records. Let's talk about the running game first, because Tom Telesco went out and said, look, we have Zamir White. He probably will be our bell cow. He'll probably be our bell cow, but we're going to need to get another running back at least to help him out. We have Alexander Madison, and we drafted our guy Dylan Laube in the 5th round or something like that. So we got 3 people in the mix. We got Brandon Bolden still there. So in 2020, Luke Getsy had Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams, and A.J. Dillon. Aaron Jones played 14 games. He had 1,104 rushing yards, 9 touchdowns. Jamal Williams had 505 rushing yards with 2 touchdowns, and A.J. Dillon had 242 yards and 2 touchdowns as well. So what that shows you is we're going to have our bell cow, our Aaron Jones type, which will probably be Zamir White. Alexander Madison will be the 2 and come in and get the rest of the stuff when Zamir White is not healthy or he needs a break. 500 yards from Jamal Williams is pretty dang good. And then they had a young buck in A.J. Dillon, like our guy Dillon, and he will come in and make some plays and score a few touchdowns every now and again. So Luke Getsy has proven with 3 different types of running backs that he could fit each one into the right system, find holes and alleys and creases for all these running backs to go in and out of, and have people contribute all 3 levels of the game. Now we get to the wideouts. The top 2 wideouts for the Green Bay Packers were Davante Adams and Valdez-Scantling. Valdez-Scantling was the speed guy over the top. His numbers are not great, but his yards per catch are up there because he is a stretch the field kind of guy, a Trey Tucker kind of guy. Davante Adams had 1,374 yards, 18 touchdowns. He had 115 catches. Pretty dang good for Davante. But here's what I want to talk about. Luke Getsy utilized 3 tight ends: Robert Tonyan, Jace Sternberger, and Mercedes Lewis. If you combine those 3 players' stats, here's what you get. 74 catches, 807 yards, 15 touchdowns. That's the production he got out of the tight end position. Robert Tonyan being the best tight end of the 3. If Robert Tonyan that season was on our team this year, he'd be our 3rd best tight end. So when you say Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback, that's why these stats are so good. Okay, yes, MVP, Hall of Famer, no doubt about it. But Luke Getsy has never had Michael Mayer and Brock Bowers to throw the ball to. He was throwing to an okay Robert Tonyan, a Jay Sternberger who has never played in the league since this season, and Mercedes Lewis, who was over the hill. And if he can get 807 and 74 and 15 from those 3, what can he get from Michael Mayer and Brock Bowers. At the time when they were in college, were 1 and 2 in the tight end position. We got the second best tight end last year, Michael Mayer, Sam Laporte and him, back and forth, right? And now we got Brock Bowers, the best tight end far and away. A lot of 12 personnel, opening up those running lanes. Then we're going to hit him with that play action pass and the 2 tight end sets with Devontae and Jacoby. So those were some of the numbers of the key players that they had in 2020. They had 3 okay tight ends. We've got 2 great ones. Their running backs might have been a little better at the time, but we might have more consistency with 2 guys who can do it better than A.J. Dillon and Jamal Williams. But now I'd like to get into some important statistics for the 2020 season. This is on Packers Wire. You can find this in the description. I'll put a link to the article. I'm going to read a little bit from it because it's important to show you how Luke Getsy was able to coordinate this passing game to unlock Aaron Rodgers into another level. In 2020, the Packers had more touchdown passes than punts. And look, we've got a Pro Bowl punter in A.J. Cole, an all-pro. If we can stay on the field consistently, because this is what this stat means, not only did they throw a lot of touchdown passes, but they stayed on the field. They were able to control the pace of play and limit the amount of punts they had. Look, 48 touchdowns from Aaron Rodgers is a lot. I'm not expecting Aiden O'Connor or Gardner Minshew to hit 48 touchdowns. But the 47 punts the Packers had in 2020 were the fewest in Packers history. So, yes, they threw a lot of touchdowns, but they were able to convert on 3rd down and control the game. Packers in the red zone that year scored a touchdown on 80% of their attempts inside the 20-yard line. To put that into perspective, the best team at converting red zone trips into touchdowns this past season was the San Francisco 49ers at 68%. The Raiders this year were 48%. Last year were 48%. Red zone efficiency, especially in terms of scoring touchdowns, has been such a problem for us. And Luke Getsy was able to convert 80% of his red zone attempts into touchdowns. Listen, another thing I just want to say as I'm speaking about Luke Getsy, he was not the offensive coordinator for this team. Matt LaFleur was there calling the plays. But when you are the passing game coordinator for the league MVP, and you've shown that you were able to produce him the best season of his career, he had a lot of influence on what was happening in those games. Maybe the most important stat here, 11 different Packers caught touchdowns. You had players like Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Alan Lazard, Mercedes Lewis, all the running backs, Equanimous St. Brown, Sternberger. You had guys from all walks of life catching touchdown passes from Aaron Rodgers. And when we've got guys like Michael Gallup and Trey Tucker and Guyton waiting in the wings, we're going to need all these guys to get in the mix and catch touchdown passes. And if he can get, he being Luke Getsy, Aiden O'Connor or Gardner Minshew, to spread the love, people are going to be wide open because we're going to be running the ball like Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams, and A.J. Dillon did in 2020. We're going to be scoring consistently in the red zone. Let's get to 60%. We're going to get Davante Adams the ball early, get him in rhythm with slants and bubble screens like they do in the Packers games consistently. If he can get these weapons to lift our quarterbacks up into what they can be in their peak, which I believe is enough to make the playoffs, maybe win the division, but most likely come in second and make the playoffs, we can be rocking and rolling. And when you look at these statistics, again, I know I've made it clear a million times, Aaron Rodgers was their quarterback. I'm not denying that. But our weapons are hand over fist way better than the Packers' weapons were in 2020. So if you could say that it evens out just a little bit, we had better weapons, they had the better quarterback. If it stays here just like this, right? If that can be the same production, if we can get to 2/3 of what the Packers did in 2020 with a top 5-10 defense, all of a sudden we have a top 5-10 offense with the quarterback like Aiden or Gardner. Who could possibly stop us? Devontae clearly vouched for this guy, which is why they were ready to bring him in as soon as Cliff Kingsbury left. And I think it was a blessing in disguise for Kingsbury to leave, because I don't even want a coach that was willing to say, yeah, I'll coach you guys, and then bounce. That's not how Raiders operate. You know, they're saying once a Raider, always a Raider. You got to be on the field before you consider a Raider. And once you put on that silver and black, that's it. You don't think about going to another team. And I wouldn't want a coach like Cliff Kingsbury who said, yeah, I'll stay, and then said, nope, I'm actually going to go. If Davante Adams is vouching for this guy, if the best receiver in the league is vouching for this guy, and they drafted Brock Bowers. They clearly have an idea of trying to replicate the tight end production and the wide receiver production and the rushing game of the Green Bay Packers in 2020. And when Luke Getsy was with Chicago, they had absolutely nobody. The one consistent shining star in the passing game for the Chicago Bears was Cole Kmet. Ironically, they used the pick that we had when we traded them Khalil Mack. We gave him a 3rd round pick. It was Cole Kmet. So all I'm saying is this. Get excited for 2 tight ends, for 12 personnel, for multiple running backs in the games at the same time, for spreading the love, taking the top off the field. All these things you saw with Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers in 2020, they're going to try to do here. And if the quarterback can be consistent and keep the ball on the offensive side, do not turn the ball over, we could be rocking and rolling. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this. What do you think? What do you think about what the Packers are able to do in 2020 when Luke Getsy was the first-time offensive passing game coordinator for the Green Bay Packers? Comment below, let me know. Join the Patreon, patreon.com/ALLaBorde Raiders. You get all sorts of amazing, exclusive videos, ad-free content, videos early, name at the end of the credits, Discord access. You get all that stuff if you want to support the channel and sign up. That would be great. If not, that's okay. Please be sure to subscribe. It is free after no charge to you. I love you guys, and I'll see you next time.